Hi, it's Mary, a traditional Chinese medicine tutor and an acupuncturist in Canada.
This video explains grouping the slow pulse, moderate pulse, rapid pulse, and racing pulse by the pulse rate. Slow pulse usually stands for an excess and deficiency cold syndrome but can be seen in internal excess heat syndrome. A rapid pulse is common in excess and deficiency heat syndrome but can also occur in internal deficiency syndrome. Whenever a racing pulse appears, it is a sign of a severe condition. Nevertheless, a slow, rapid, and racing pulse can all be seen in a healthy person. Definition by pulse rate: slow pulse, moderate pulse, rapid pulse, racing pulse.
Usually, in the old days, the pulse rate was taken by the beats per breath.
When you breathe, inhale, and there's a break. Exhale, so inhale, exhale, and there's one interval in between the inhale, exhale. That count as
one breath.
For a regular pulse,
within one breath, there are 5 beats.
That's considered to be regular. If it's 4 beats
per breath,
it's called a moderate pulse.
A slow pulse is less than 4 beats per breath.
If it's rapid pulse, it's more than 5, but less than 7.
If the pulsation is more than 7 beats per breath,
it's called a racing pulse. The racing pulse is super fast. That's old way of doing it. If you count that way, you have to count down yourself first as a practitioner.
Observe your own breath in and out.
At the same time, count the patient's beats. That takes practice. But nowadays, it's easier. You can use the watch to count that. By using watch, usually 60 to 90
beats per minute.
We call it the regular pulse. Less than 60
beats per minute.
We call it a slow pulse. And if it's 90 to 120, we call it a rapid pulse. If more than 120, it is a racing pulse. This is just general reference. Don't be strict on this. If you ask me,
how about 90 beats per minute?
The people just counting the 90 or 91 is a regular pulse or rapid pulse. If that is the situation, why just look at other manifestations to think whether this patient has other problems or not to make your conclusion. If this person do nothing at all, sitting at home, and the pulse is 110, you will suspect what's going on. But if this person just ran 100 meters and counted it as 100, that's not a deal at all. So use our common sense. TCM requires a lot of common sense to make your judgment. Don't make your conclusion based on 1 or 2 symptoms.
Please notice that when we use a watch or timer to count the rate of pulsation within a minute, it is not as accurate as the ancient way of using the pulse rate within a breath. We just roughly say the beats from 60 to 90 per minute are within the normal range, and cannot tell precisely which pulse beating range belongs to the moderate pulse and which belongs to the regular pulse. This is specifically true when considering the physiological differences from person to person. For example, people with a yang inclined constitution will have a relatively faster pulsation than people with a yin inclined constitution. Therefore, as a TCM practitioner, your judgment will not be restrained by the number of beats, but combine all other signs and symptoms gathered by the 4 examinations to make a comprehensive diagnosis.
Moderate pulse.
Moderate pulse, by definition, refers to the rate of beats 4 times per breath. So the speed is moderate and sluggish. It indicates the dampness syndrome. If there's a dampness, it slows down the movement. And the dampness usually associated with the spring, so it indicates hypofunction of the spring and the stomach qi. Having said so, the moderate has many meanings. We are going to introduce 3 different meanings when using the moderate pulse in pulse diagnosis. Moderate in Chinese is called HUAN. We call it HUAN². But the HUAN, depending on the context, the meanings can be very different. First is about the rate. Moderate means a little bit slower than the regular ones. Not necessarily slow, but the slower one.
4 beats per breath.
That is called the moderate pulse. It's faster than the slow pulse, but slower than a regular pulse. Meaning number 2, moderate pulse means a state of relaxation in terms of vessel's tension degree, not too loose, not too tight. Number 3 means a state of harmony. When using moderate pulse under this meaning, the moderate pulse is a regular pulse, not rapid, not slow, not tight, not loose, which is an even, smooth pulse with sufficient stomach qi. This kind of moderate pulse is a sign of vitality or sen. This type of pulse has sen, has a stomach qi. You will need to differentiate the meaning according to the context.
Slow pulse.
Slow pulse is a pulse of fewer than 4 beats
Per breath.
It's so slow. We know slow is associated usually with cold. So slow pulse, the first indication is the cold syndrome.
Cold is characterized by stagnation and contraction, like the river current in the winter. It's slower than the speed in the summer.
The heat pushes the blood moving faster, and the cold makes the blood run slower. That's the common sense. So slow pulse, the first indication is the cold syndrome. The cold can be the excess cold and can be the deficient cold. The abundant yin accumulation will cause the excess cold. Deficient cold is caused by yang qi deficiency. Yang qi deficiency will lead to deficiency cold. These two situations will lead to different type of the combination of the slow pulse. If the pulse is slow and forceful, again, forceful associated with excess. So slow and forceful pulse, the indication is excess cold syndrome. This results from yang qi stagnated by cold, indicates the excess cold syndrome. So this one can happen, like for example, people newly got cold because of the cold passage. The cold, it's in the superficial part, and the people react to the coldness. So that's called the excess cold syndrome. There's another type, is the slow and forceless pulse, which is caused by deficiency of yang qi, suggests the deficiency cold syndrome. However, it's not the only indication. They can indicate something very different. Another indication is the excess interior syndrome because of the accumulation of pathogenic heat.
The interior excess heat syndrome
Happens specifically in a disease we call it Yang Fu organ disease. The major manifestations associated
with Yang Fu organ syndrome
is the heat accumulated inside.
This superabundant pathogenic heat mixtures with the waste materials in the large intestine and leads to a retention of dry feces, which blocks the qi and the blood circulation. As the human body is an integrated one, thus a slow pulse can appear, but the pulse must be deep and powerful.
In a specific situation, the slow pulse can caused by the heat, by an interior excess heat. That's why we need to know. But heat syndrome and cold syndrome are quite different. But other than this very specific situation, generally speaking, the slow pulse is associated with cold syndrome.
The physical slow pulse can be seen
in athletes and the manual workers. Athletes and the manual workers, because of physically frequent exercises, their pulse usually slower than regular person who are not that into physical exercises.
Question. Slow pulse indicates cold syndrome only. True or false?
The answer would be false, because the slow pulse can be seen in people with excess heat syndrome. You can see it as well in a specific situation. But very often, generally speaking, slow pulse associated with cold, deficiency cold or excess cold.
Rapid pulse.
Rapid pulse refers to a pulse more than 5 beats,
but fewer than 7 beats per breath.
The clinical suggestion is heat syndrome. That's the general indication about the rapid pulse, because the heat will accelerate the flow of the blood. There's 2 types of heat, excess heat and deficient heat. For the excess heat, the pulse must be rapid and forceful. It's because there's abundance of heat accumulated in the body. The rampancy of heat accelerates the movement of the qi and the blood circulation. For a deficient heat syndrome, you can see the pulse is rapid but forceless, and also will be steady, because this kind of deficiency is caused by the yin deficiency. Yin deficiency in a protracted disease leads to a deficiency heat. So the pulse is steady. When you say steady, it's not talking about the diameter of the blood vessel, but talking about the feeling of it. When you feel it, you feel as though the width is narrower. That's where we call it steady. Steady, talking about the feeling of the width of the blood vessel under your finger. That's your subjective feeling. The rapid, it is because there's a heat, and forceless also because it's deficiency. So the pulse is steady, rapid, and forceless for a deficiency heat syndrome. In a yang deficiency or deficiency cold syndrome, you can see the rapid pulse as well. The rapid pulse can see in deficiency cold syndrome. Usually it's in the heart yang qi deficiency syndrome. You're going to see the pulse is rapid.
There are different types of deficiency: qi deficiency, blood deficiency, body fluid deficiency, essence or gene deficiency, yin deficiency, yang deficiency, and their combinations. Each deficiency has its unique characteristics. Qi deficiency pertains to weakness and the lack of energy. Blood deficiency pertains to pale color and the lack of nourishment. Body fluid deficiency pertains to dryness and the lack of moisture. Gene essence deficiency pertains to retarded development, etc. Yin deficiency associates with deficiency heat, and the yang deficiency associates with deficiency cold.
There's a saying for the deficient disease.
The more deficiency the condition is, the more rapid the pulse will be.
Therefore, we know rapid pulse does not all belong to heat syndrome. In a deficiency cold syndrome, you can see it as well. There's another case associated with rapid pulse. If deficient yang is upward floating and the vessel qi doesn't gather, the pulse is rapid, large, and forceless. This kind of pulse can be seen in a syndrome where there's a true cold with force heat. There's a yin accumulation inside. Yin accumulation associated with cold. There's a true cold inside, and this cold blocks the yang going in. Therefore, the yang has to escape, has nowhere to attach to, then it will disappear, will escape from the body. The syndrome is called true cold with force heat. The floating yang going outwards, pushing the blood. Therefore, it feels like the pulse is very fast. The pulse is rapid. However, it's forceless, because that's the deficiency yang qi. That's the escaping of the yang qi. The character of yang is going outwards. It makes the vessel looks like bigger. You push on it, it's forceless. You feel it, it looks like large. But this large is not because there's abundant qi and blood floating inside the vessel. It's not because of that. It's because there's too much cold inside. The yang has nowhere to attach to, then escape. We call it floating yang. This floating yang makes the pulse rapid, large, but forceless.
The deficiency yang floating outward syndrome can occur in conditions where the qi and blood are in extreme shortage. We know that qi has to reside in blood or body fluid, and the blood and the body fluid also carry qi. When there are extreme blood and body fluid deficiencies, which lose control over the yang qi, the deficiency yang qi will escape to the outside as well. The pulse in this condition is also rapid but forceless.
There's a physiological rapid pulse can be seen
in children between 5 to 6 years old.
When in exercise or excited mood, healthy people's pulse rate is rapid.
Racing pulse.
Racing pulse refers to the pulse
with 7 to 8 beats per breath. That's too fast.
It suggests yang hyperactivity with yin exhaustion.
This situation usually occurs in a severe stage of a cold-induced or warm heat disease, where the excess rampant heat reaches an extreme and consumes yin dramatically to almost yin exhaustion. Thus, the exhausted yin cannot check the abundant yang, leading to a rising and forceful pulse. This is a sign of yang hyperactivity without being checked, and the kidney yin is about to be exhausted.
Another is the primordial qi desertion.
When pressed on the pulse rate is racing but forceless in response to the finger and even disappears under pressure. This is a sign of the deficient yang outward floating and the near depletion of primordial qi. Regardless of whether it is an excess or deficiency syndrome, the appearance of rapid pulse indicates that the condition is serious.
The racing pulse can be seen in adults who just have finished heavy exercises and in newborns and infants
under 3 years old.
That's the physiological change.
Comparison of slow pulse, rapid pulse, racing pulse.
The slow pulse and the rapid pulse, they are opposite in pulse rate. The slow pulse rate is less than 4 beats, usually indicating a cold syndrome. A rapid pulse rate is over 5 and less than 7 beats, generally indicating a heat syndrome. That's generally speaking, but don't forget there's exceptions for the slow pulse and for the rapid pulse. Slow pulse can be found in excess heat syndrome, and the rapid pulse can find in a deficient cold syndrome as well. But generally, slow associated with cold, rapid associated with heat. For the racing pulse, when the pulse is more than 120, it's a very severe warning signs. If you like today's video, please give me a like, subscribe to it, and share it with others. See you in my next video. All the best!